Welcome to the Dark Zone, an adventure racing podcast.
Give it a go. I love the sport so much. I think there's so much you can learn about yourself, the relationships, team experiences that you can have doing this sport. So yeah, I'd encourage anyone to give it a go. There's a lot of great events around, and yeah, to do a race, especially with people who, if you can get your good friends or just anyone really, I think it's a pretty special thing. So yeah, I would encourage people to give it a crack.
Well, you know, for me, the action is the juice. I'm in.
I need you, brother. Please, Sensei, please.
Courage, Bob.
Courage.
That's it. Courage. Yeah. Yes. Thank you. Hey, thank you, Sensei. Thank you, Sensei. Thank you.
Say the word, Chef.
Whatever.
Hey Dark Zone listeners, it's Wayne Leake from Canada's Wilderness Traverse Adventure Race. September 25th to 27th, 2026, we are bringing the classic Canadian wilderness race back to Dorset, Ontario, a favorite host site less than 3 hours from Toronto. We've got an all-new course and includes Algonquin Park, Canada's first provincial park. Big thanks to the Dark Zone's Brian Gatens for sharing this, and we're thrilled he's returning north this September as part of our coverage team. Earn your ARWS North America rankings points, and there's no conflict with USRA Nationals this year, and we'd love to welcome you north. Expect epic, untouched wilderness, off-trail treks demanding dialed-in nav, and canoe legs that will test you with spectacular paddling and punishing portages. Are you ready for Wilderness Traverse? Join Brian and the rest of us this September 25th to 27th. Get the details and secure your team spot now at wildernesstraverse.com. That's wildernesstraverse.com.
Welcome to the Dark Zone Adventure Racing Podcast. This is your host, Brian Gatens. Folks who listen to the Dark Zone, we go across the spectrum of adventure racing, right? We work with volunteers, racers, race directors, everybody involved. Bit of an age spectrum conversation now. If you listen to a few episodes ago, we had on Nathan Fave. Nathan, as we know, is a 7-time world champion, an elder statesman, if you will, of the sport, who appears to have successfully retired this time after a couple of failed attempts at retiring. And then today, we have the other end of the New Zealand racing spectrum. We have 18-year-old Louie Berger, who has done more racing by the age of 18 than most of us will ever do. Louie is joining us from New Zealand, and I'm grateful for his patience with clocks and time schedules and getting up early on his Saturday morning. So Louie, welcome to the Dark Zone. Great to have you here. Let's jump right into it. You've done a lot of races in a lot of places. Tell us about your favorite race experience.
Oh, thanks, Brian. Pretty tricky one there, but yeah, I think I've been lucky enough to clock up 4 expedition races over the last kind of year and a half. And yeah, pinning down a favourite one would be hard, but I think last November raced Godzone here in New Zealand. That sort of returned after a couple of year hiatus. And yeah, that was a pretty special race for a number of reasons, including a pretty awesome team who had raced through school for a couple of years, and then yeah, we managed to pull together an expedition race, which was in many ways a pretty insane, epic thing. Yeah, it was a long race, but yeah, a lot of highlights in there.
I can imagine too, we consider very often the sport talks about New Zealand as being the spiritual home of adventure racing. And Godzone, the race at the top of that pyramid, right? The top of that mountain. Godzone is an epic race every year. It returned, it came back, and had taken a hiatus, it came back. And you had a chance to get into it with your team. I know that Nathan helped you along the way. I know that you had your teammates were involved in that. But I think to give a context for your Godzone experience, we have to roll the clock back even further. And if I understand correctly, you really found your adventure racing start and experience in your high school experience. Do I understand that correctly?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's a lot of the foundation for these expedition races in the last few years. Been racing for 4 or 5 years at school, quite a bit before that. We're real lucky. Motueka High School is probably one of the top schools for adventure racing in the country. We're not really good at too many other sports, but in the last...
You're crushing the adventure racing. That you got covered. Everything else, not so much.
Yeah, I know that's right. We're not a big rugby school or anything, which is huge in New Zealand, but we do have quite a strong team, which is growing and yeah, quite a cool culture in that. So I guess I got into that relatively young, probably was 14 or 15 when we first qualified for like the Get to Go. That's one of the school races here in New Zealand, and that's relatively competitive. There's a whole qualifying thing and a national final and stuff. We built a squad for that. It's quite a big race, like team size. You race with 7 other people. So it's 4 girls and 4 guys in a team, and that's quite interesting. Obviously pretty unique having teams that big. So you learn very quickly how to race well in a team and all the things that come with that. And I think being inside a really strong, good team, we had a very good time. I think, that built kind of the love for the sport and that foundation of teamwork, which has carried through into some of these bigger races.
The New Zealand commitment to adventure racing, especially at the school level, is unique for a lot of countries. The dedication that your school had to adventure racing, is that part of the larger New Zealand cultural dedication? What is it like as a country and as a culture? Is this a natural outgrowth of that belief, or does that school sit by itself in that dedication?
Yeah, I think as a whole in New Zealand, we do have a pretty strong outdoor culture. I think even at school, with the people who aren't involved in adventure racing or whatever, I think there's a pretty high level we have outdoor education at school. And I think, with our school, sort of where we are geographically, we're quite close to, we can get into the hills pretty quickly. There's a pretty good level of get outside and outdoor skill within the school for those who want to bring a racing element to it. I think that's where it starts for our school. But as a whole in New Zealand, I think the sport is relatively well known. Obviously, Godzone and stuff gets quite a lot of media, and we've had the school sort of racing kind of competition. There's a junior one and a senior one that's probably been going sort of 25 years now. So I'd say it is quite well established. And our school wasn't huge in it, but then we had Wendy and Jody. They came in. Jody's Nathan's partner, Wendy and Mark. They're pretty well-versed outdoors people, and they started that school team up 5 or 6 years ago, and it's just really built from there. I guess that's the foundation of it, just a few keen people setting something up, and it's grown into quite a big thing.
It's great, right? It's the combination of dedicated mentors. You have a culture that supports it educationally as well as socially. You have easy access to the outdoors, right? The stuff they go do like that. And so it's nice to see that. And then, so it sounds to me that your introduction to adventure racing through your school, taking part in an 8-member team, which by the way is wild to think of 8 people on an adventure racing team at the same time, to go through all of that, led naturally to the idea of Godzone. And we'll talk about your Godzone experience in a second, but then you also have the race run by the Magnus brothers, which is called the Magnificent. You were involved in that race also?
Yeah, that's correct. And the Magnificent one was my first expedition race I did. For that, initially, Andy had put out a thing offering free youth entries, and I'm sure as your listeners know, it's a pretty expensive sport. Yeah. So we'll jump on that. We're all quite young, but we thought we'll just have a go. There's not really too much to lose here. And we had together a team, and then a few things fell to bits. Someone got a concussion, a few people had to pull out, and it ended up being just me, and I had no teammates. So I called up Andy and said, I'm training. I'm really keen to race. Can you chuck me in with the random sort of adult team who loses someone? And quite as it happens, quite a few teams did actually lose people in the lead up to that race. And they're like, they asked Andy if he knew of anyone, and he sold me pretty hard. But I think when they found out it was a 17-year-old who they were going to be racing with, they did get cold feet a bit. So, I probably got turned down 3 or 4 times. And then, a week before the race, there was a team, and they were desperate enough. No one else wanted to jump in that late in the piece. So, that was my first real racing experience. So,
that's wild. So you had a hard time. So you were all keen to race. And this happens very often in adventure racing, right, Louie? This is not uncommon now. People get injured, family commitments, whatever it might be. All of a sudden you look up to your right, to your left, there's no other teammates. They tried to get you onto a team and everybody kept passing on you. If you said to me, Louie, that if I had an open spot on a team and a 17-year-old experienced New Zealand kid wanted to race, I'd be like, send them in. I wouldn't even think second about it. But clearly other teams didn't feel that way. You fell onto another team successfully. How did that work out?
Yeah, it worked out pretty good, actually. I had a fantastic team for that race. I found it was quite different to the racing, obviously, that I've done at school. It's way longer and stuff, but the team dynamics were quite a lot different. What wasn't necessarily bad, but it was quite different. So that was probably the biggest thing for me. I think what I've found through racing with school, and I think sort of what we've been taught is just like how we manage gear, manage each other, like the whole teamwork side of things was very different being in a random team.
So talk a bit about that, because a lot of our listeners, that happens, right? They'll have for example, we just had the Endless Mountains Adventure Race, and there were multiple teams there who had never raced before together as a group, and they met almost at the start line. So talk to us a bit about how you worked your way through that, what you thought it was going to be like and how the expectations changed and how you navigated that. And I asked that question, Louie, because a lot of our listeners will identify with that experience of having to adjust expectations in a new team format relatively quick. So how did you do that?
Yeah, like for that team in that example, we had a bit of a chat beforehand, what our roles are going to be in the team. It's pretty standard stuff. I'd say most teams would be doing that. And yeah, I think for myself personally, I wasn't super nervous, but I had no idea how hard this was going to be. Like it was all very unknown at that point in time. So I think we all decided our roles, who was going to carry what and, whatnot throughout the race. But I think a real key thing is to identify is to be open the whole time to that changing and how people are feeling at a certain point of time with shuffling gear around,
right,
sharing food, towing, those key things. It's easy to talk about, but
when you're actually in the race and you're doing it and you're doing it under stress and under pressure, you go from conversation to action to get a bit more difficult.
Yeah, for sure. And there's always an ego thing with giving up gear. Like it is quite hard. And in the school team, I've normally been on the side of taking someone's gear, which is definitely the much easier side. And you'd be like, oh, give my back, it's all good. But, sometimes when you're on the other side of that, and that's happened a bit before, it can be a bit harder. So I think that kind of mentality in the team of always switching gear, checking in on each other, all the sort of basic teamwork things, it just wasn't as well practiced or necessarily had the same systems that I'd been used to with school. Yeah, that was probably the biggest thing.
You had to make those inside mental adjustments on the fly during the race in terms of the gear to carry, who's going to carry what. And to your point, it's much easier to take somebody else's pack than to give up your own, right? That's a common psychological experience.
Yeah, for sure. And 24 hours before the start line. So there's so many. It's super interesting. It'd be interesting, right? Because you're going to see everyone's side in 120, 140 hours of racing. It took a bit to understand when other people are down exactly what they want, how they want to be talked to, all these sort of things. I think that took a little bit of ironing out. But, as a whole, I couldn't have been a better team really to get thrown into last minute. Yeah, we had a fantastic race, actually.
And looking back on that, recognizing that the team dynamics were worked out and you can't do that just fine. Tell us a bit about the race. Was the jump into 120 hour, 110 hour, 130 hour expedition race, was the jump as you expected it to be, or was it easier or harder?
Oh, I think it was probably, it wasn't easy, but it probably was slightly easier than I was expecting. Yeah, I didn't really know. I was before it thinking it's going to be like the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And it was for sure up there, but I just tried to not have the mentality. I think you can get quite in a race if you're deciding that this is tough because you're thinking the end goal, it's such a long way away. It's obviously quite a tough sport. You can work yourself into this idea of it being super tough. And yeah, it was really hard, but I think what was good about that race, we did have quite relatively light packs. That the longest stage was probably not much over 25 hours. There was quite a lot of stages. So it was a long race, but I think those shorter stages and your lighter packs definitely helped me quite a bit.
So clearly the dynamic of being thrown together with a new team is always challenging, but the fact that the race itself, and the Magnificent is a great race. The Magnus did a great job putting it together. When you had that race put together and you went through that experience, it sounds like that was a really strong introduction for you to expedition level adventure racing. It really could not have, while races could always go better, it sounds like it went really well for you.
Yeah, it went great. I loved it. I came off the back of that race pretty excited to do another one. There wasn't too many parts of it I didn't enjoy. And I think I found I thought being young, my body might pack it in day 2 or 3, but I actually found that it didn't get easier or anything, but it wasn't actually too bad.
So you had the Magnificent experience, you enjoyed it. I always joke that you just have to like the race 51%. If you like it that much, you're going to do another one. So it sounds like you liked it more than you disliked it. And then this obviously led you into considering Godzone. Between your Magnificent race and your Godzone race, did you race any races in between, or was it from one race to another?
Yeah, I probably did 3 or 4 races. I did one expedition race, Expedition Oregon, over in the US, which was, pretty cool. That was quite a short race, but I did that with a friend from school, and we're a Kiwi team, Andy, who organises the Magnificent. And then, couple of other young Kiwi racers. So yeah, that was the expedition race, and then I raced a 48-hour here in New Zealand, and like the schools champs and a few school races between that and Godzone. Yeah,
we're making the jump from New Zealand-based adventure racing with that topography, that climate, coming into the Pacific Northwest of America. How did you do with that difference?
Yeah, pretty good. It was quite different, like even everything, like the maps, but yeah, also the style of race. Like I think New Zealand, I quite like New Zealand terrain. It was quite a bit more technical in New Zealand than over in Oregon. I think that edition of Expedition Oregon was actually a pretty technical one, but yeah, I found that race to be a lot faster than any of the expedition races I've done in New Zealand. Each stage, each bit was, moved pretty fast for its length. There wasn't really much slow bush bashing or anything.
Yeah,
but
that's one thing. When I read your Godzone report, amazing how much bush you smashed through during the course of the race. And clearly that was a challenge for a lot of you. You talked about in some of the parts of that write-up, how you just got stuck out there and you just had to just smash through things to get through the other side. Bit different when you raced in Oregon.
Yeah, for sure. And even Oregon didn't really have any like packcraft trek sort of thing. A lot of New Zealand races are quite based around a packcraft trek. So we actually did a lot of it with running vests, which was quite unusual as well.
Yeah. I'll put the link to your Godzone race report in the show notes. And it really was something else, how big your packs were. They were crazy how large they were when you were carrying them, when you were doing that big packraft trek in that 72-hour section in Godzone. I can get over how much you were carrying.
Yeah, we did have quite a bit. We were planning for 2.5 days out there. We ended up blowing that out quite a bit. Every team did. It was insane. But yeah, you've obviously got all the food, and it's probably a little bit deceiving how big our packs are in that photo. Nathan had just got this custom made, I think it was 120 litre racing pack, and he lent me that. So it does look like a bit of a tower, but it just meant we could keep all our pack crafting gear inside the pack. So while the pack was huge, that's massive in the bush, not getting caught on stuff with split paddles and PFDs and losing gear.
Everything was inside the pack, because otherwise, if you're not careful, we just had that in Endless Mountains, we had to get down to the water. It was only about 3 miles, but our paddles were out of our packs. And you catch a wrong tree branch, you leave a paddle behind. You've lost it. And if it's in the dark, you never find it. So clearly having everything inside the pack made a big difference.
Yeah, for sure. And I've been a racer, I've lost PFDs and stuff, and it's definitely not worth it. So yeah, good peace of mind. Yeah.
So here we are. So you kind of see the string that comes together, right, Louie? You have the high school support, the mentorship, the experience, which rolls into the Magnificent, which rolls into the great experience you had there, new team. You learned a lot physically, you learned a lot mentally, into Oregon, into the 48-hour race, and then it rolls into Godzone. Do I have the order correct of the races?
Oh, yeah, the 48 hours was just before Oregon, but yeah, essentially. Yeah.
Roughly the same. And so by the time you got to Godzone and you had done these great races and you were racing with 3 of your mates and you were a young team, you were 73 years old, if I understand correctly, when you put all your ages together. 73 years old is crazy when you think about it. I raced on a team. I don't want to turn into an old man here. The team that we had in Endless Mountains was probably 55, 111 plus 120. So that's we were about 235 years old.
Yeah, wow.
You were 73.
Yeah, you guys got 3 times the experience.
Wow. Three times of the wear and tear in the bones. But you're right. The experience goes a long way. So now all of a sudden you're Godzone, epic, iconic New Zealand race, huge culturally to you, right? Means a big deal in the press and the media. And now you're heading into Godzone. Talk to us about that experience. How did that race go?
Yeah, Godzone was a huge race. Actually, it was a massively positive experience for us. Pretty soon after Magnificent, we'd locked in that Godzone team. So we had quite a big build up. Like, it was a really long training program and a long time to get sponsors on board and prep for that race. So I think that was quite good. We were feeling pretty prepared as a team. And yeah, Nika, Tide and Leo, who I raced with, I'd raced for a couple of years in that school team with them. I'd done quite a lot of other racing with them. So we knew from a teamwork perspective, we just know each other very well. So that helped a lot. Yeah, it was quite exciting, just the prospect of going out and doing that 5 or 6 days with, 3 of some of your best mates. So yeah, that was really exciting.
And it took off the issue off the table of racing with people that you didn't know, right? That was your Magnificent experience. You were young. They really didn't know you. You came to the team late. Instead, you had Leah, Nika, and Ty that you were ready to go and you were set. So clearly, you must have felt really good going into Godzone and prepped and ready to race. How did that enthusiasm translate to the race itself? Like when you got into the race and you got the maps and you got going, did your expectations hold together or did you have to change things along the way?
Yeah, I think it was like largely what we expected. I had done a couple of races before that, so I had some idea of what we're in for. Right. The other three, I think Ty and Nika had only done 12 hours before Godzone, which was pretty, that's quite a big jump.
That's a leap. It's what was the hours wise? What was Godzone? Was Godzone 120 hours? Was Godzone 160 hours? What was it? Do you remember?
You can get into this. I think a lot of that course got cut because it was so big, but I think we were probably upwards of 150 hours out on course.
And they had raced 12 beforehand.
Yeah, they'd raced 12, but I think...
less than 10% of the total distance they'd raced previously.
That's right. The caveat to that would be that they're both very experienced. Yeah. All of those guys have experienced outdoors people, and I would argue that's probably a bigger factor. Mm-hmm. A lot of people said to me before the race, you're a bit more experienced than these guys. You're going to be like leading them for a while. I laughed a bit because that wasn't really the case at all. I had the experience of maybe knowing what the sleep deprivation and stuff might be like, but a lot of racing.
That's pretty cool. So you felt that their outdoor experience acted as a good balance to your expedition race experience. Yeah,
for sure. And I'm not really a navigator, so they're all over the maps. And I think in a race that long, it's actually mostly about managing yourself and your gear and moving efficiently, which is a lot more of that. Can come from just having good mission and good outdoor experience. Yeah.
And good on you, by the way, for not falling into the trap of thinking that because you had been the one to race such a long distance that somehow you had the advantage over them. You recognized really early on that who they were, aside from their lack of adventure racing experience at that level, still made them very strong teammates. So psychologically, that had to help you because you didn't feel like you had to carry them.
No, not at all. I was obviously they're all over the map and decision-making wise and strategy-wise. I think we were pretty collaborative in that field. But no, for sure, was definitely not leading the team around that course at all. We were, even though we hadn't raced longer races, it felt like we had a bit of experience in a way.
Yeah, you knew each other so well and you'd raced together previously and you shared so much culturally, you were ready to go. I read through your race report and I have some notes here just to chat a bit about. I don't want to quiz you with your memory. But I did get a chuckle when you talked about you had the sea kayak to the trek to the pack raft, that you zipped your headlamps inside the rolled pack rafts. You remember doing that?
Yeah, I do. We definitely remember that. That was interesting because as soon as we got the maps, we looked at them and we were like, wow, this is going to be we're going to be out here for the full 8-day cutoff. This is insane. So we had no interest in starting fast. We actually we're in the last place, I think, for a while. We've got good technical skills, but actual paddling strength was probably our weak point in that race. So anyway, we come off there and we're just aiming to be smooth for the first day because obviously it's a lot about conserving energy and stuff. We weren't phased at all. It was obviously over 150 hours of racing ahead of us at that point. So we're trying to be really smooth. We're like smooth transitions. We're not going to lose any time there and we're just going to conserve our energy and race pretty responsibly for the first day and then get to the first Packraft TA and we're all ready to go. Bar all our headlamps and glow sticks, I think, as well, which was in the T-zip.
Right.
So that was a little bit of a fumble at the start, but probably only cost us 5-10 minutes.
Well, I was when I first read that, I had the concern. I thought that you were on the water in the dark with your headlamps inside the T-zips, but that was okay. That's not what happened.
Oh, no, we were lucky to catch that. And I think at the time we were like, oh no, this is a bad start. But I think probably 2 or 3 days later, we got lost for about 8 hours. So it's
it's obviously when you start and I don't care about the distance of the race. Every race you start, there's always pre-race nerves, right? That first, finding the first checkpoint, getting to the first transition area is always a challenge for the team. But it sounds like you slipped into a pretty good pattern after that. Because stage 2 was that 80-kilometer bike.
Yeah. And that was great. That was like first time through the night. As soon as we saw how long the race was, we knew we were going to sleep. So we just got through that and maybe 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning sort of got an hour and a half of sleep in a tent actually, because Godzone supported, which is interesting as well. So we just dived into the tent. I had an air mattress and all these kind of nice things. Yeah, that was quite handy in a way.
Is mountain biking your strong suit as a team?
Yeah, not bad at cycling. I'd say trekking would be our strong suit. I'd say just like being on our feet in the bush and off track is probably we would make up the most time. But yeah, no, not too bad at biking.
Yeah. And then you came up that bike, and then you had that 50-kilometer trek on stage 3. You thought it was going to be 20 hours in your report. It was actually closer to 25 to 30 hours. What was that like for the team when you realized it was going to be that long?
Yeah, I think from memory we were like 28. Yeah, so Godzone, I don't know, there were a few interesting questionable things about that course. They didn't really release any of the, what did they not release? I don't think they released, they've just released elevation, but they didn't really release distance, and the time estimates were pretty questionable. So we had to infer how long it was going to take, and we didn't have that long to look at the map. So yeah, we were planning on a 24-hour, no sleep, out from the TA, go hard, sleep back at the TA sort of thing. And pretty quickly we saw the size of the hills out there, and it was super, super hot. We had to carry just an insane amount of water, and yeah, we had, I think, 3 hours that second night. So yeah, that was a huge trek to start the race off with.
And that was racing. That stage you got buzzed by the helicopter.
Yeah, that was hard case. I was pretty excited about that. We had this big climb up to this peak. I forget the name of it anymore, but it was pretty epic, quite big ranges that we're in. And yeah, we get up to the top and big news media helicopter pulls up. I don't know if people know, like Richie McCoy's a big rugby guy in New Zealand, quite well known. He was flying it. We looked out, and they're like right level with us on the ridge. A couple camera guys hanging out the door, and I just could not.
How great was that?
I'd never been around this kind of media scale, and we're like, wow, felt like celebrity.
A proper Godzone experience, right?
Yeah, and like those helicopters are expensive to run, and they'd be there for 10 minutes. It was pretty insane.
Somebody told me it's $50 a minute. That's what I was told to wear those helicopters. Right. Holy cow. Okay, so you had that. And so clearly, so now you're starting at stage 3, you're starting to go here, but you find out that you're in 7th place when you get to the TA, right? So now all of a sudden, it's like you're last off the sea kayak, you had a really strong trek. Then you went into the mountain bike, and at the mountain bike sounded like it got really hard because that was stage 4. It was 144 kilometers. You were pretty beat up, pretty tired. And I think it was a tough descent coming off that, if I understand correctly, right? A lot of the Tussock.
Yeah, that's right. I heard quite a lot of people joke that Godzone was like 6 or 7 stages of trekking, because the bike did feel like a trekking stage. We had a hiker bike, which was great. We'd done that Magnificent. I quite like hiker bike anyway. We got to the top of the hill, and we was on the map. It was like maybe you could ride down it. Definitely you couldn't ride. It was a lot of the night just walking our bikes down this hill.
Which is tough. Walking a bike uphill's hard enough. Walking the bike downhill is brutal because it's slippery, slidey. And of course, the pedal's always hitting you in the shins. Always happens all the time.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, no, there's a little bit of frustration there, but we just had to keep the morale up, because I think it was the first sort of time in the race where it really felt like it was dragging that morning on the bike stage.
Yeah. But then you had the canyoneering section, which was pretty quick, right? That was short, like 40 minutes.
Yeah, that was real short. The toughest thing about that stage we found in the rope stuff, all pretty straightforward, but you did have to get basically fully submerged in a cold little creek. Yeah. And then we were on to like 6 or 7, sorry, I lied there, probably 4 or 5 hour paddle where you're like proper grade class 2 whitewater, where you're getting pretty wet. So that just cooled us down to start that paddle, which was quite tough.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so this is all in the race. We're going to get to the stage 6 is really the big part of the race, right? This was the epic theater being out there, the monster part of the race. But talk to us a bit about how is the team, for your report, sounds like really strong. How were you holding all of yourselves together through those first 5 stages? Were your feet okay? Did you do foot care? What were you eating like? Like, how hard was the race starting to wear on you?
I think by that point, yeah, we were actually feeling quite good. Our bodies are holding up well. We were having quite a big focus on foot care, on nutrition. We knew we were in it for the long haul, so it was more about maintenance up until that point than going all out. We were quite low on sleep. Our strategy was always to sleep quite a lot, and we'd done, I think, 1.5 hours, 3 hours, 1.5 hours. But what we thought was going to happen was that we were going to get dark zone on that river.
Mm-hmm.
So we would have got an 8-hour sleep. So
I saw that in the report. What happened?
Yeah, we beat the dark zone, which I think was it. But at the time we were like, oh no.
Guys, slow it down. Slow down. We're going too quick. First off, thanks for working the name of the podcast into the episode. I appreciate that. So you thought you were going to be dark zone and get a good 8-hour sleep, and that just didn't happen.
No, that just didn't happen. But yeah, we've gone a little bit further ahead because of it, but we ended up getting a little bit lost. It was like real tough bush, which is quite hard to bush bash at night. So we had maybe 5 hours that night, and I don't know how much further ahead we got because we made a few circles on the tracker
right
that night for sure.
Yeah, go. And so this is so now, and I don't want to mix up the race here. Are we discussing that stage 6, which was the pack rest and the trek, where you were out there for 72 hours? Are we on that stage now, or is that we're on it now, right?
We're on it now. Yeah, that's correct.
So now on the schematic, it was listed at around, the slow time was 52 hours. If memory serves me correctly, you were out there for 72 hours. So you had 3 full days out there.
Yeah, that's right. That stage was, I do wonder how much vetting that stage got from the race organisers, because there was no way those times were ever going to be accurate. I think RAB, which is, essentially Avaya minus Nathan, I think they were like over 50 hours on that stage. So that sort of puts it in perspective. Yeah, that was huge. Quite a mental battle on that stage. We were going for the cutoff. We knew it was going to be hard in the end. We didn't make the cutoff, but I can get into it a bit later. That was the end of the race after that stage anyway, because, they just made the course too big. So they pulled, essentially all the teams off the course after that stage. So, that was none of that.
Yeah, the whole race was neutralized after that, right? They basically restarted the race.
Yeah, that's right. And that was a little bit controversial because, they didn't give any time credits or anything. So for us, that was not good. But
because the team that might have been 8 hours behind you might have caught you, and now you were
that's
neutralized.
What happened. Like I think we had 4 hours and then maybe 8 hours on a team, and then they stopped us for 19 hours. Okay. And they finished the race with a 4-hour sea kayak paddle, and you heard how the first sea kayak paddle went for us.
Right. Yeah, you wanted a trek probably, right? Give us a trek.
Yeah, we wanted a trek. Yeah, for sure. So we lost a couple of spots, but we weren't too worried. Yeah.
Yeah, so clearly the race got big. The race had to be neutralized. That was all fixed around there. And clearly, as we all know, as knowing race directors, it's hard to nail that, right? Because races get big and things out of cut. So clearly you were frustrated with the way that things wrapped up. But when you sit here now and you look at it months later, what was your big takeaway from that race? Because you did great. You were the number one youth team, correct? Right? Because Fear Youth had to drop out, right? So
Fear Youth were charging. They were chasing the RAB team for most of the race. So it was quite, it did feel funny when we got the youth thing. But we managed to stay in the whole time. But I think for us, like our goal for that race was to do the full course. And it was really good with the results. We did some full course teams. There was maybe like 3 of them did exactly the same course as us, but just with how they did it, we were technically on the short course. But well, to answer your question in terms of takeaways from that race, I think, I don't know. I think it was our first experience racing as a team. I think it did show, like, we knew there was a tough race. I think we felt that if we can get through a 3-day stage with big packs in the New Zealand mountains on Godzone, it sets us up pretty well for other events to come, really. Yeah.
It's amazing how that single 3-day stage with packs is basically like an adventure race by itself.
That was almost the same length as that Oregon race I did 6 months earlier. Right. So we were laughing about that.
So clearly this all kind of builds up, and we're sitting here now and it's now July of 2026. Right around the corner is going to be the Junior Adventure Racing World Championships, which is going to be held up in Canada. You're traveling to that race, correct?
Yeah, I'm doing that race. I'm doing that with Leo, who was in my Godzone team. It's going to be interesting. The schematic just came out a couple of days ago. Having a look at that, it's a really short race. It's only going to be 6 to 8 hours a day for a couple of days plus a prologue. Right. Yeah, for us, we've been working quite big hours, so the training volume has been way less, but been doing a lot more speed work and stuff. So, that's a little bit not exactly what we're used to. So it's going to be really interesting, but quite exciting that event's starting and And we get to be a part of the first one.
And so when you think about it, you look at where you fall in the sport now, 18 years old, racing for the past, say, 5 years, right? We'll go back, we'll say 13, 14 years old when you started. Having done all of these big races, right? Having these epics, Magnificent, Godzone, Expedition Oregon, the 48-hour races. Going into a race like the Junior World Championships, which is designed on purpose to be a stage race format, 2 days back-to-back, plus a prologue. You mentioned speed work. Do you run the risk of, maybe it's not exactly a great question, right? Because you've raced shorter distances, but it sometimes feels like it's easier to get more prepared for a harder race than a race that feels like it would be quote unquote easier. So how have you prepped for that? You mentioned speed work. Have you talked about the gear you're going to carry, how little gear you're going to carry? Have you dug into because the thing is too, is with the shorter race, everything matters so much more because there's less time to recover.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I think that's what suits us quite a lot with the big races. And I really like about it is it averages out, obviously, because you're over such a long time. Your mistakes can be recovered from a lot easier. But yeah, in terms of prepping gear and stuff, we've been following roughly a training program for an 8 or a 12-hour race. And yeah, with gear, we're not carrying pack grass for sure. So we're taking a lot less stuff, little running vests, more gels, more, because there's a lot of transitions actually in that race. So that'll be a bit of a focus. But yeah, it is going to be interesting because you obviously have to be really on it. It's going to be quite a lot of intensity because there's no rest or anything.
Yeah. And there's no, exactly. And there's no, a 30-minute NAGR compounds markedly when it's only an 8-hour stage. Because if you lose 30 minutes in NAGR, the race is going to be over before you know it. You don't have 24 hours to make it better.
Yeah. Even recently I did a 24-hour, probably 10 or 12 weeks ago, and I was doing it with my brother actually. We were up the front and we made just a nav route decision, which no one else made. And it ended up being terrible. And that essentially put us right at the back and we just couldn't recover in that amount of time. So yeah, we're hoping that doesn't happen. I don't want to put it out there. But yeah, obviously, we just have to be on it.
So now that you're coming up for Junior Worlds, you've done all these big races, walk us through the rest of your horizon. Are you looking at maybe getting out to Worlds in Corsica, the Adventure Racing World Championships? Is that on a schedule? You have university to worry about. Walk us through your plans here, because you've done so much so soon, so young. What's left out there for you?
Yeah, I definitely want to keep racing. I want to keep building on the racing. I think now I've got 4 expedition races under my belt and quite a few other races. I don't really want to go into a race just to experience the race. You see, like I'd quite like to form a strong team, have a good build and actually go into the race knowing, we can be competitive. We can have a really good crack at this.
It sounds like you've checked off the experience box. You don't want to check off the racing box.
Yeah, for sure. And so there's that into consideration. I think doing those 4 events in a year and a half plus some 48 hours in schools, and it is quite a lot on your body. And I think possibly the last sort of couple of races I haven't had the ideal kind of build for that. So I think I'd like to maybe slightly knock back the volume of racing, but just focus on it a bit more and hopefully try and get a team or build a team where we can really build on our results. And I don't think Corsica's on the cards this year, but a world champs for sure is, Yeah,
Croatia next year, right? Igor's race. So that's a possibility too. And I do think too, from someone who's on the opposite end of the spectrum from you, I'm 55 and a half, right? And I've been going at this since I've been in my 30s, right? So about 25 years of endurance base here. One thing I've learned is that at 18 years old, your body is definitely still growing. We don't stop growing. I really kind of feel that you grow and develop as an athlete till the age of 25, right? And so you want to be careful. The wear and the tear on your body compound if you're not careful. So to your point, do your races, get fit, get strong, develop yourself another way, but be careful about those wear down injuries could catch up with you.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's huge. I love racing, but also love a lot of other sports, a lot of other things. So I don't want to ruin my body just doing lots and lots of races. I could be doing this till I'm like 60. So there's no reason to rush into it. But I'm also keen to try and look into some other events as well, possibly an ultra or some sort of running events, because I love the endurance thing. I just a huge buzz from that kind of side of things. So just keen to explore some of those avenues also. Yeah,
that's great. It's great to sit here and talk to you, Louie, to hear the idea of the the fact that you were surrounded by a community that supported your endeavors, you had mentorship, you had access to things in school, had access to great races. It's wonderful to hear your journey. Nobody gets anywhere by themselves. And you mentioned Nathan and others as mentors, things like that. Give us a few minutes. Who do you want to call out? Who do you want to thank specifically for helping you get to this point? Think about your sponsors, think about your teammates, think about anybody who supported you along the way.
Oh yeah, this is huge. Thanks for asking that question, Brian. Yeah, like heaps of people. I think first and foremost, probably at school with the team, Wendy Vandenberg and my dad, my old man Barry as well. Yeah, they've coached us. I've brought that team up, put in a lot of time, a lot of energy, and I think that's really the reason I get to do all these races. I've installed some pretty good teamwork, pretty good culture, racing strategy, these things. That's fully come through school, so super appreciative of that. And then, the sponsorship stuff as well. Like, it's a hugely expensive sport. All the sponsors that have helped us along. Kudos Sync AI, who's our naming sponsor for this upcoming Canada race. Mountain Adventure, who supported us with quite a lot of gear. Tally's another local company. I don't want to miss anyone out, but yeah, super grateful for that. And then obviously Andy and the Magnificent race, yeah, they were pretty key and helping. He's super enthusiastic and getting to that first race, getting to Oregon. Yep. And obviously Nathan with some of that Godzone build. There's a lot of people to thank because it takes a pretty big team to get a team to one of these races, as I'm sure.
In my research for this episode, I came across a mention of a supporting member by the name of Ron, who might have passed away. Do you want to talk a bit about that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Ron was great. When we were first looking at doing, when I was going to Oregon, I reached out to a few companies for support, and Ron was the sort of marketing guy at Mountain Adventure, and he was right behind it, super keen on supporting our Godzone team and on youth. And I know he's helped a lot of people. So unfortunately he passed last year, but he's been pretty supportive for our team and a lot of youth and sport around New Zealand. So
I respect your desire to recognize him what he did, right? Because I know that he passed away and he meant a lot to the team. I always like to subscribe to the idea, Louie, that there are legions of people that we'll never meet who are supporting us, right? People who are backing us up in our corners, want us to succeed, want us to do well. And I appreciate you calling him out. I appreciate you calling out all the sponsors and everyone who helped out along the way. As we wrap up our time together here, are there any closing thoughts that you want to give us for the newer adventure racer?
Oh, yeah, I think just, give it a go. I love the sport so much. I think there's so much you can learn about yourself, the relationships, team experiences that you can have doing the sport. So I'd encourage anyone to give it a go. There's a lot of great events around, and to do a race, especially with people who, if you can get your good friends or just anyone really, I think it's a pretty special thing. So I would encourage people to give it a crack and just enjoy it. Don't take yourself too seriously. I think if you could just have a good time, you'll race better. That's my philosophy anyway.
All right, folks, episode 169 of The Dark Zone in the books. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you to Louie for coming on to the show. He was a lot of fun to talk to, and I hope that our paths cross down the road. As always, thanks for being a listener. If you like what you hear, click, and subscribe. Leave a review. The algorithm likes that. That always helps. We will keep talking as long as you keep racing. So thanks for being here. Be safe and enjoy yourselves out there.